Now, in order to download the database, you will need a compatible transfer drive.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Deltabase, a show where I, Delta Tryon, sit down and chat with other Transformers creators and discuss their personal journey with the franchise and what they're up to in the creative space. Now, if you're at all familiar with the world of Skybound Entertainment's currently running Transformers comic, and you watch a lot of YouTube, then I'm sure you know today's guest. He started his channel with Halo Reach and Halo Infinite gameplay content, and moving on to covering the ever-elusive Transformers Reactivate. Now he's finding great success in covering the Skybound comic series as he just surpassed 10K subs on the platform. Swizz Prime, welcome to the show.
Yo, thank you for having me. Well, what an intro! You just like gassed me up like that.
Hey, I had to do my research. You know, I don't want to bring a guest on here and just be like, hey, who are you? What do you do? But I think what's most important is congratulations on 10K subs. It's a huge milestone.
Thank you. Yeah, like I honestly didn't think I'd ever get this far, like ever on YouTube. So it's been a pretty fun ride.
Were you watching the sub count go up the day you hit 10K? Did you have it up?
So I did at first, and then I just remember like I had it open, and I went to go do stuff that day, and I just kind of forgot, and then I checked back. I was like, oh my god, I missed it.
You know, in hindsight, it sometimes is almost even better that way. Otherwise, you just spend the whole day watching
just
the number
waiting.
go up.
Yep.
Right, and then your day's gone. So now you've been on YouTube, at least just with this channel with Swizz since 2018, and you've amassed pretty much over 3.5 million views on your channel. What's that journey been like for you from when you started the channel to where you are now?
Oh man, I mean, I've met so many cool people who just kind of like put me on the path. I mean, talking to other creators, like helping me. I mean, doing Halo stuff. Actually, before that, I think it's all privated now, but I was actually doing like sports games like Madden. That's what I was doing for the longest time. I really liked, doing Halo stuff, and then wasn't really a fan. And then when I saw like the Reactivate game sort of coming out, but not really, I was starting to cover that. So it's just been a real long journey. I've been making like videos since I was like a kid, man. Like back like when 2007, like I was like 5 years old, man. I would literally just like get like my like mom's camera and just like record. As crazy as sounds, I know a lot of people nowadays like, oh yeah, I'm making videos, but like honestly, like it's such a funny thing. There's so many videos like of just me just like talking about stuff, playing games and stuff. So it's been a pretty long journey.
Have you always been kind of more disposed towards making video game type content?
Yes. Video games have always been like a thing I use to like escape from like reality. Playing that, talking about it, making videos. It just kind of, if I can have joy, escaping reality using that, making videos to help other people escape from that. That was always kind of like the thing way back when I was a little kid. So yeah.
For you, at least growing up making that type of content and still making that content not too long ago when you were covering Halo Infinite and Reach and Transformers Reactivate, did you ever struggle with kind of the concept of everything I do has to become content? You know, every time I play, I have to record. Did that ever come up, and did that kind of ruin the fun of the game?
That's a fantastic question, because on the Halo side of things, yes, because it was always like an uphill battle with like trying to figure out what I wanted to do content wise with Halo. So I would do like, gameplay videos, like commentary, and then sometimes I would do like try and do my best to do like a breakdown detailed video. So it really would just like it was always an uphill battle, and I always felt the need to stream when playing the game,
Mm-hmm.
and that really like turned into an unhealthy habit. And
Right.
when it came to like reactivate stuff, I didn't really have the need, but I felt like I wanted to keep my community like as tight as possible. So like I would try my best to like stream other Transformers games to like just try and like have that appeal. So yeah, at times it was kind of it kind of turned into like an unhealthy habit. So of just everything being content. So absolutely.
So how did you was Transformers Reactivate your first foray into Transformers, or what was?
No. So I've told people this story before, and I'll be glad to share it again because it's such a fascinating story. I always joke around and call myself an artificial G1er, because my dad put me on game with Transformers when I was literally like, I don't even know, like a year old. He
Mhm.
would put it on while I was like crying or whatever, and like apparently I would stop crying. There'd be like stories like that. So I've always liked it ever since I was a kid. Being born in the early 2000s, I had the Unicron trilogy. I had
Mhm.
all these great shows. The live action movies. So like Transformers has just always stuck with me. And then when it came to Reactivate, I was like, hey, I like video games and I like Transformers. And the name Swizz Prime has been around for since 2018. Why don't we
Mhm.
just branch into that and really like delve into like the Transformers side of me?
Well, knowing your background not only with Transformers now and your background with covering video games in general, we obviously recently saw some leaks of old footage from Transformers Reactivate gameplay back from around 2020. But my main question is, do you think the game is ever going to come out? And if it does, do you think it'll be worth the time of all the fans?
Um, okay, that's a tough one because when the
Well, you
game,
want it to be good.
yeah, I yes, of course, I want it to be everything like every Transformers fan wants it to be. The gameplay footage, yeah, it's like really like old. It does look good. It
Mhm.
looks promising. I think the core foundation is there. I just don't know if people will really like it because I feel like for the longest time when it came to like Transformers Reactivate, people are gonna try and compare it to the pedestal of like those great Cybertron games that everyone
Mhm.
loves. So I feel like
Right.
it's gonna be like such a struggle for that game to have its own identity. And seeing the gameplay of it, it kind of looks like to have pieces of the Cybertron games, especially like the vehicle combat. So like it's gonna be really tough to say. And I think the wait will be worth it. We need communication for it, man. That's really all we need.
Yeah. Do you have any worries about the direction that the game has gone, being kind of this obviously they've mentioned that it's going to be a free to play game unless
Yeah.
that's changed. And kind of seeing how free to play games have gone, in these past couple of years with, all these season passes and this
Right,
and that
right.
and cash shops. Do you really worry about that for this game?
Well, okay, so let me ask you something. What like let
Sure.
me ask you, what's your thoughts on the free to play games and how like the modern
So
gaming industry is now?
I I will fully admit that I'm a recovering Destiny 2 addict.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I played Destiny since the beginning, and it was probably just last month that I decided I'm gonna put this down.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
still love it. I love the world, the lore, the concepts, all that stuff's great. But just the feeling of I constantly have to get on this game. I mean, I don't have to, but this
Right.
feeling of I constantly have to log in. I constantly
It's
have
like
to
a
do this.
chore. It becomes a
It's a
grind.
chore.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes a chore and a grind. And I think chores and grinds can be fun in games if you enjoy the world that they're set in.
As long as they
But
don't gel together. Like I
right,
absolutely agree.
exactly. But the one thing that would always kind of steer me away is the amount of stuff in a cash shop. Now, it is true that a lot of that stuff, you don't need it. It's mostly cosmetic.
Yep.
You don't have to buy it. I'm 100% okay with a game being free to play with a cash shop. You got to make money. I get it, but it just really kind of depends on how far down your throat are they going to cram it? How
Right.
bad is it going to be? And so when I hear free to play, I go, okay, interesting. And then I hear cash shop, I immediately go, ooh, I'm a
Yeah, the
little
battle
weary.
pass, the we don't really have
Yes.
loot boxes in games anymore. That's good. But like, you
Right.
have the battle pass, the seasonal pass, you buy this at the
Hmm.
front and you get the seasons. It's all just it's so messy now.
So that's what worries me about Reactivate is
Yep.
that's what it's gonna be. And I think the world that they're setting it in, from what little we've seen,
Hmm.
is really interesting and a really cool idea. But I'm just so worried about it's so funny to say. Everything that they've shown world wise, continuity wise, looks cool. But the actual game itself is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, the idea of it like being like in a post-apocalyptic world, these designs having like this Mad Max type, flavor to them. It's such a cool idea and concept, but then when you think about okay, the story sounds good, the setting, the theme, all this, but then like you said, the gameplay itself, how much is it going to hinder, the player's expense? Like Is it going to be pay to convenience? Is it just going to be simply cosmetic? Is it going to be because like the first Ascendant, like that game recently just came out, and like it's free to play. It's a looter shooter, but it's also a pay to convenience. Like you can grind it out, or you can throw in like $5, $10, $20, whatever, to for the player's convenience. And I don't like that.
If you have 300 hours just lying around, you can grind it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, what worries me also is, you get into areas, and this is so specific and detailed.
Yeah.
That you might, and we don't know if this would happen, but you would have, hey, you're playing Transformers Reactivate, and you're playing as Bumblebee, and you can pay, I don't know, $10 or whatever to get the Cliff Jumper skin.
Yeah.
At that point, I'd probably be like, all right, I think I'm about out. I think I'm done. It's red Bumblebee. Sorry, Cliff Jumper.
Yeah, it's a little worrisome to think about. I won't lie. It's something that, I mean, back before the game was even announced, there was like rumblings of, it being, quote unquote Transformers Rise, and then, hearing that the game's free to play, and you're just like, oh man, because there's not a lot of good free to play games out there. I mean, you look at games like, the Battle Royale side of things, those free to play games, like, yeah, they have the player base, but like, it's still bogged down from being free to play. It's easier for cheaters to get in. So, I mean, for a game like Reactivate, where it's like going to be a co-op PvE looter shooter type, Destiny 2 type Warframe, it sounds like a cool idea, but it's just, you really got to ask the question, like, how much is it going to hinder the player to just play the game normally without having to pay, like you said, a Cliff Jumper skin, a hubcap skin for Bumblebee, like all these like deep cut, mini bots, they're just skins, they're cosmetics instead of just adding the actual characters. It's a whole rabbit hole that I just don't think it's gonna be well for the Transformers fan base to just really welcome in, because it's not even good to begin with.
I do hope that there's some potential to it, because I do think that the franchise has great potential for games.
Yeah, the last, I believe, like quote unquote AAA Transformers game was Devastation. That game was awesome. Like that game was dope.
Oh yeah.
The the whole gameplay, but like it was just kind of a fighter, game made from, Platinum. So it's been a long time. I think it's safe to say, and everyone will agree, it's been long overdue for us to get a new brand new Transformers game. And I think Reactivate can totally be that. It's just, I don't think players or fans should have these crazy high expectations, because the way the gameplay is sounding out to be, it's just going to be like, Warframe and Destiny and First Ascendant. And if you're into those games, and I feel like you're in heaven. I feel like, okay, you're just waiting for the game to come out.
Well, moving out of the video game sphere and more into what you currently run on your YouTube channel, I wanted to talk about Transformers, the comic series. And I wanted to ask, obviously you've mentioned before in some of your videos and in your community tab that you have not read through the IDW series from 2005 or 2019. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you why you haven't, because I never judge somebody for not reading it. But tell me how you got introduced to the Skybound series and what that was like.
Oh man. So okay, I will say why I haven't gotten into them. I have no idea, because growing up, I always read Marvel comics. Like my dad put me on that. And so I would occasionally read, X-Men. Like I read a lot of X-Men comics. And with Transformers, it's weird how I never really got into those side of things. I've read a couple of IDW stories, like the Shattered Glass series. I love that. Last Spot Standing, Treads and Circuits. Like I haven't read a whole lot, and the reason why I have no idea. It was always kind of a daunting task, because there's so many comics. And I think I've asked like 5 times, like just people in my community, like, okay, where do I start? And then like I get sent like this link of all these issues to read in the order. I'm like, this is a lot. Yeah. Like this is
there's lot. There's 7 different reading orders, so you're kind of cooked.
It's I don't know, but how I got into the Skybound comics was I was keeping my eyes and ears open when I believe, it's been over a year ago now, that Skybound got the Transformers rights. And this is obviously like after Invincible came out, the first season of that on Prime. And I binged, like read all of Invincible after watching the first season. Like that's a great series. That is a great comic series. So then I was like, okay, if Skybound makes this, I'm interested to know what they're gonna cook up with like Transformers. For the longest time, I saw the comics were coming out. I saw, Void Rivals was like the first thing to kick everything off, and I saw they were doing GI Joe. I was like, this is really cool. And I kept forgetting to read the Transformers comics. Like I believe I started officially reading them right around issue 4 of the first volume. So months have passed, and I know there was people in my like community telling me like, "Yo, Swizz, you gotta read these, man. These are really good. Like yo, I know you like the G1 side of things. Like you should check them out." And I'm like, okay, cool. And like I read them, like, oh my god, I gotta make a video on this. Like I was literally just like, this is crazy. Like even if it gets no views, I gotta cover this.
So then what was it like, starting making that first video into now what you do? Obviously, you've kind of created your own community now, not just around Skybound, but around Transformers in
Yep.
general, but with your content mainly focusing on the Energon universe. What has it been like not just creating that content, but also building that community into your Discord server, which actually I'm a member on, which has, I
Yeah.
believe, about 250 members. What has that been like?
It's been pretty crazy because I remember when I first uploaded the video, I was very like worried because I'm just like, oh man, like the TFR dudes, like they don't care. Like I'm talking about they don't want to hear me yap about this comic and even beforehand, I'm just like, how do I make this into a video? Because I'm just like, man, like there's so many comic book videos out there. I was like, maybe this just isn't my like place. But I was like, no, like I want to sit down, I want to break down page by page. And if you watch like my first video, you can tell it was unscripted. But then once you get to like everything beyond that, you can tell like, okay, like I'm breaking it down, telling you what's happening. And a friend of mine explained it perfectly how like my videos are. It's like imagine if like your friend who like is really into something and he's trying to introduce you to the hobby and he's trying to
Mhm.
break it down at like such a basic level, and I'm like, that's exactly how it is. Like that I'm literally
Mhm.
like walking you into like the comic book. I'm trying to explain it to you, and it's just like, if you want to read it, like read it yourself, but I'm gonna give you the cliff notes. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen, but like you should read this on your own. It's fantastic. So I remember growing up as a kid watching, Comic Story, and rest in peace, Comics Explained,
Mhm.
those guys. I really liked how they always kind of broke each page down and telling you what's happening. So that was like my inspiration really of on how to do it. But of course with like my own twist. It was very daunting. It was very like scary, but I started getting new people commenting. I gotta say, in terms of like the Transformers overall community, I think the comic people are just super sweet. Like they are super nice, at least from my experience, because whenever I get something wrong, they're just like, "Oh, hey, actually, it's this." Usually, when I feel like when I do like other videos, especially like the short side of things, they get pretty nasty if I say something
Mhm.
wrong. But like with the comic side of things, they're just like, no, bro, it's actually this. And if you want to get into the, read this and that. And I'm like, okay, like, thank you. Like, thank you for being nice.
Yes. Well, especially, I mean, you hope that they're like that, especially because when you look into any comic series, but specifically with Transformers, there's so much.
Yeah, there's
We've already
so much,
mentioned that.
man.
Well, what I want to do now is I want to switch us over into a lightning round, and I'm going to
Okay.
ask you 3 questions about Transformers, and I want you to answer them as quickly as you can.
All right.
Try
I'm
not to
I'm
think
ready.
about them too much.
Yep.
Just kind of say whatever comes to the top of your head, and then we'll discuss them after the fact.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep. I'm ready.
All right. If you could spend the day with one iteration of Optimus Prime, which would it be?
Oh, Skybound.
Keep one of these and erase the others from history. Transformers from 2007, Dark of the Moon, and Bumblebee. Which one are you keeping?
Oh, like 2018 Bumblebee?
Yes.
I think I'm keeping 2018 Bumblebee.
Smart choice, smart man. And the last one, what's one Transformers character that you would want to bring back in the toy line like Legacy?
Okay, I'll use this answer. It's kind of a cop out answer. I want IDW Star Saber because he looks
That's
awesome.
fair. No, that's fair. That 100% makes sense. So I think your first answer, Skybound, Optimus Prime, that's easy. We don't need to talk
Yeah.
that much. But I do want to talk about your choice to keep the Bumblebee movie and to get rid of Transformers from 2007 and Dark of the Moon. I know you're not saying those are bad movies,
Right. Yeah.
but explain to me
Thank
why.
you for
Yes,
pinning,
no, yeah.
not pinning
Yeah,
that.
don't worry. I'm not attacking you here, but explain to me why Bumblebee is the one that you would keep.
Okay, so I really love what Travis Knight did with the reboot, and like originally, like Bumblebee was supposed to be like a continuation. It was supposed to be like a prequel of the live action Bay films, but it ended up being a reboot. So I really liked what the whole plot was, like how grounded the plot was for the movie. And I also really liked how they gave Bumblebee a voice. I mean, he didn't have it long, but he had a voice. And I love the Cybertron beginning scene. I love the designs because they have such a nice blend of being faithful, but also having that live action mechanical detail that the Bay movies had that just looks really cool in some of the designs. And I want to say too, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I grew up in the early 2000s. I had, Unicron trilogy. I had the movies. I love the Bay movies. I think they haven't aged as well. Some of them haven't aged that well, but like, I really do like what they did. And if it wasn't for Michael Bay doing those movies, the franchise wouldn't be where it is today. It might not even be here. So like, you hate him or love him, he literally resurrected the franchise, but also kind of killed it in the end with the 5th movie. But I mean, we don't really talk about that. So
he's an interesting character, but I think you can tell very easily that we're on the same page, given that the movies that I had you choose from were the 2007 movie Dark of the Moon and Bumblebee, which, at least in my opinion, are probably the 3 best movies that we've gotten out of the live action. Which order those go in, that's up to interpretation. But those are the ones you mentioned. Actually, growing up in the early 2000s, having the Unicron trilogy. Of the Unicron trilogy, 3 parts: Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. I think I know your answer. What is your favorite?
Definitely Armada.
Yeah, it's always Armada.
It's so good.
It's always Armada.
It had such unique designs and the voices. I mean, you had Gary Chalk return after Beast Wars as actually Optimus Prime.
One of the best Starscreams ever.
Oh yeah, dude. The characterization of Starscream in that is like probably one of, if not the best.
Sideways, I think, is a great character in that show.
Wheeljack, for some reason.
Yeah, all bangers, and the humans are fine.
Yeah, they're fine. They're just
Which is a pretty high standard for the humans to be just fine, as we've seen recently. Well, Swizz, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I want to give this opportunity for you to tell my audience and your audience, whoever's watching, if you have any projects coming up, what you're working on, what's coming next for you and your channel.
Ooh, okay. So, first of all, thank you for having me on. This was fun. This was great. Just talking shop. But I am going to be covering actual other Skybound, like comics that aren't Skybound. That's been an ongoing joke for a while now, saying, "Oh, yeah, the next video will be an IDW video or Dreamwave." But I will actually be covering the Shattered Glass series fully, and I also want to start getting into the Marvel comics because I believe a couple days ago they just redid the first ever issue from Marvel, Skybound. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun time breaking all that down, covering it. So yeah,
I do have to ask, September 18th. The Moon is Following Us. Issue number 1 comes out. Is that something you're going to be covering?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and 100%. For the audience, if you don't know what that is Daniel Warren Johnson's next comic series. He is the writer and the artist for the comic, and it looks fantastic.
What a great guy.
Awesome.
He's such a cool guy.
Watched his most recent live stream. I saw you there in the comments as well. Such a humble man.
He's just shredding the guitar, talking to chat.
Perfect guy to be writing Optimus Prime as a character. Just wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, Swizz, thank you so much again for joining me on this first episode of Deltabase. Hope to see you again in the future. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.